Okay. Today, we will work in a slightly different way. We will begin with the healing list soon. And then we will go to a short story told by another, a little bit of an explanation by myself. And then we will open to any questions you may have, either regarding the story or spirituality as a whole. So, Brandon, may I have the healing names, please?
Jonah and Anita, Manny, Chantal and Meg, Kelsey and Pia, Rose, Marie, Jamie Dell, Carrie, Helen, Anna and Jerry, Barbara and Beth Cleaton, Sheila Wilson, Katie C., Nigel and Michelle Clark, Amanda and Craig, Teresa, Allison, Roberta and Jerry, Wendy C., Jason and Belinda, Caleb, Kath and Rod, Daniel and Chantel, Ariel, Teresa, Kathleen, Raylene, Neil, Luke, Jenny, Josh, Lorna, Mira, Melanie, and Mia. Thank you.
So I will step aside and come back to you in a short while. Yeah, I think this is the first time this story's been told, so you might quite like this one. I did. Well, in fact, I enjoy it every time I kind of repeat it to myself in my practice times for this session. Anyway, I hope you like it. Nice little, I think they call them allegories or something like that, where it's a story in a story. So I'll get on with it, and then you can have a listen to what he's got to say in a translation. This might be one for you, Brandon, that you'll quite like as well. It's quite interesting, anyway. Now, it does connect a little bit to the story last week about building a house and it's upside down and things. This kind of carries on from that, although it's a very different story and has different meanings. So you'll see the connection between the two if you listen to last week and this week. Anyway, there's a man who decides to build a house. So he buys himself some bricks and wanders out to where the land is and just about to get started to lay his first bricks, and along comes a wise man. And the wise man says to the man, says, you should put some concrete down first before you put the bricks together. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. And the man goes away and buys some concrete and and gets ready to pour some concrete onto the land so he can put his bricks on top of it. And along comes the wise man once more and says, I think you ought to clear the land first, get rid of a few trees and rocks which are in the way. He says, yeah, well, that's probably a good idea. And he spends the whole of the day and the next day and the day after clearing the land. And he gets to the point about just ready to pour some concrete, and the wise man appears again and says, have you checked the land to make sure there's no obstacles underground that you don't know of? He says, well, perhaps I should do that as well. And he goes about inspections and finds underneath the land some problems and gets those fixed, and he's just ready then to get on with putting the concrete and laying down the bricks. And the wise man turns up once more and he says, do you think it's a good idea if you started with a design and a plan so you know where the bedroom and the bathrooms are? He says, well, okay, that's a good idea too. And he disappears for perhaps about a month and draws up and designs what he wants to do. So he turns up at the land the next day with his plan, knowing what he's going to do and where he's going to build it, and ready to pour his concrete. The land's all ready for him. And the wise man comes again and says, why are you building the house on this land when all your family are on the other side of the hill? The man says, well, that's a good idea. Perhaps I should build it closer to where my family are and they could come and visit. The man stops what he's doing and goes to look for another block of land. And he finds this new block, which is not far from everybody and everything, and it's all ready, waiting for him. And he thinks, this is the land for me, and he buys it, and he gets ready to start his work. And along comes the wise man once more and says, nice land. He says, are you going to build your house here? He said, I'm going to build it right here. He says, why are you building a house? And after much discussion, a man says, well, I'm building a house because I want my family to come and visit me. And all my friends are building houses. And I want to build a house. He says, why? And it turns out the man is building a house because he feels lonely. And he wants to be connected to his family and friends. And he wants to build a house so he can feel loved. And feel the connection of everybody coming to him and feel joy in his heart. And the wise man says to him, perhaps it's not a house that you want. Can you build me a temple of love? So the man agrees, and he builds him a temple on the side of a hill and dedicates it to love. So it's not a house at all, it's a temple. And sometime later, the wise man comes back to the temple and meets the man again and says, how is the temple? He says, I didn't realise what I actually wanted. And now everybody comes to me and we spend time together in this temple of love. How can I thank you for changing my path? Ta-ra. Hmm. Perhaps we can entitle the story today of the wrong ways to develop mediumship. Of course, it is not just mediumship that the story infers to. It is the commune, the connection, the satsang, the sangha between man and spirit. It is with the correct questions that the man and spirit find their true purpose together. The man had the desire within him to build what he believed was a house. But what spirit required was a temple. And the man is in his endeavors to develop mediumship, found many obstacles in his way. And each time, spirit was present for the man. And you may say or think to yourself, well, why did the spirit let the man build and prepare land instead of just going straight to the temple? You see, man had to play out his own understanding. He had to understand that the foundations are the important part. Now, you can save yourself much time and effort if you come first to the understanding of spirit. You see, the man would not have been happy if he'd have built a house on the wrong side of the hill. And spirit will always get their way. It's the amount of time that it takes man to catch up. So you can see now the desire of the soul to have a temple. And the karma and desire of the man thinking that it is a house that must be built. There are further analogies within this story. The truth being that the true connection to spirit is through the heart and not through the body or mind. The building of a temple of love had a far bigger implication, not just to the man's life, but to the community around the temple. It became a bond, a point, a place, a satsang, if you wish, a joining together of those which are like-minded. So although with much effort the house could have been built, there would have been very limited satisfaction there. And if you develop your mediumship, like the man building the house, there would be shaky ground underneath it. And true satisfaction would not be felt. And either the house would come tumbling down in time, or the builder would leave it and walk away, seeking something else to satisfy the love in the heart that was truly desired. So here we have the, to be biblical, the quote, to seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be given to you, rather than attempting to build your own heaven, which at best would be a very pale shadow. Your heart at times, in your spiritual path or your mediumship, will be somewhat challenged. If there is resistance to your path, if there are obstacles to your progress, if it is hard work, if you struggle and toil for 20 years, you must first ask the question, why do I need to build this house? What is lacking that I seek to fulfill? Am I on the right side of the mountain? And of course, you can go within yourself and attempt to find your answer. And if you are sufficiently skilled and experienced, you will find your answer there. But you can also seek spirit, or the wise man, or both, and have your plan ready. All action will become purer if first you sit in silence. There is much more, of course, that could be said about the story. And perhaps it's been modernized so you could understand in the current era. So put together your plan, your designs for your future based on your truth and not by, let us call it, false desire. And from this, your truth of direction and your structure will be sound. Or not. Now, the story has been told today as it satisfies the needs of a few of you within your mind. However, as was said last week, we will open to questions on a topic of your choice, both this week and next week, before we take a break. So, in our remaining time, are there any questions, Brandon, that I may be able to assist with?
Yes, that was a wonderful story that resonated. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you. We have a question from Dave. Dave, would you like to ask your question?
If you don't mind, you can go ahead if you don't mind.
Okay, let me find your question here real quick. Dave wants to know what lies beyond mediumship. In other words, if we become experienced mediums, what is the next line of study?
Well, the point being is this story answers that question. You see that there is the truth beyond mediumship, or there is an attempt at man to express the truth through mediumship. So the first means that there is a connection, and the second is an expression. So one man finds, in the first one, the man finds the true connection of spirit, which may take him or her on a journey beyond mediumship, like the man who thought he was building a house, but really required a temple. Mediumship may then be expressed in its purity rather than its impurity. You see, mediumship, if there is no death, is what? What is it? It is the transfer of knowledge and information with the attempt of easing pain or suffering. Now, the point for any one individual would be the question. The question is, why? Why should I develop? And the true way is to first find your own spirit connection. And then let the expression come from that silence rather than the noise within the mind. So a very loose, and I do stress the word loose, analogy would be the undeveloped or the unconnected person would use mediumship as an expression of mind. But a connected person would use it as an expression of heart. Now, of course, I did say it was a loose analogy, but I tell you this to draw a line of distinction. You see, my friend, within the truth of your being, and I talk to you directly, the truth within yourself is one of you expressing the happiness and joy that sits within the pain that you can experience. At the core of your being there is a sense of wholeness. Sitting on top of that is a sense of, again, perhaps the wrong words, but a sense of inadequacy. First, find your wholeness, and then your connection will work purely and truly. Now, this statement I have made will give you some rejection. You may not fully grasp what I say, and you may at first reject my words. But if you go into your being, you will find them to be true. So one path will be true happiness, and another part, a believed happiness, or the belief that something will give you that happiness. You're at your most happy when you have let go of the world and the requirements of who and what you should be in that world. And if you let that go, then you find your contentment as you drift away. That is where mediumship sits in its purity. Now, I am not saying mediumship is wrong. I am saying that first find the truth and let mediumship come from there, from the temple of love, not from the house on the wrong side of the hill. So you asked, what is beyond mediumship? Well, depending on where you are with your progress, or where any one person is with their progress, the correct answer will be everything. Now, if you remember, and I gave you a story recently which showed, I would hope it showed you, the ways one can be distracted from their path. And if they were but to carry on the path, they would gain everything that they were distracted by and not be attached to. In the depth of one person's mind, and again, now I talk generally, in the depth of mind, people chase any modality or any skill level, thinking it will give them what they require, what they lack or believe they lack, when in truth they do not lack anything. Would it not be best to discover that and let the true expression of generosity come from that place of abundance? The word, and I do not refer to you with this, it is just a statement. The word miser comes from or gives the word misery. Now, the word miser means someone who has a lot but refuses to express or to share it. So someone can have a lot of connection to spirit, but can refuse to share it. In this case, there can be one who has a true connection to spirit, but attempts to find one little part where it works, where the underlying factor is there is enough spirit for everyone. So to answer your question, what lies beyond mediumship? Well, my words were true, and that is everything. And mediumship should be an expression of that everything. And true healing will come from that, not from the limited nature that mind can be. I trust you understand. Is there another question, Brandon?
Yes, Tamar. All right. Tamar has a question.
I
Do our
can
loved
ask it.
ones? Okay. Okay.
I can ask it. That's fine. So my question is, I've heard a lot of theories from different people. Do our loved ones in spirit lose their personalities over time? And by that I mean, do they become more and more a part of a larger cohort, a larger whole?
When you first step across the bridge, you bring with you, or do you have within your mind, and you lose all that you have, including the body, the physical. So the mind then steps into, let us call it the astral world, and the astral world there, then all personality is prevalent. And the soul at this point will look and perform exactly the way it did on the other side of the bridge. And the form then looks just as solid, just as real. You would tap a wall and the wall would echo back. In this astral world of spiritual development, then the manifestation of everything is far quicker. Personality is derived from memory, values, experiences. And at this point, if you refuse to develop or do not know that you can develop spiritually, then your values and personality will remain intact. And if you were of one type of belief, then you would retain that belief and undergo all actions related to it. And it is this world, you could say, is a world of waiting for reincarnation. That waiting could be short or long. The spiritual progress then of the soul, once it is done with its time of experience in the physical world, starts its evolution away from the physical world, away from what the mind creates, into what is beyond that. So then there is a realization that the soul then is in the world of, let us call it causal, of design and creation. And the soul begins to design and create all experiences that it requires. And here we have the birthplace of ego, because there is individuality here. The world of illusion is created at the point of the causal realm. So there is then the cause to an existence. And the soul decides for itself, I will have a life of wealth, or a life of poverty, or, well, let us say a life where I will build a house. And of course, that then is experienced. So illusion comes from this point. And personality then is also at this point. You see, what is formless at this point has some form. Form in terms of a body shape, a definition, if you like, and a desire for self or desire for creation. There comes a point here, then the soul decides enough. And the head is turned towards the light. And then there is not the gaining, but the letting go. And the soul begins to let go. Let go of its individuality, its individual needs, and instead steps away and begins to look at what is good for another. And when someone looks at what is good for another, it attracts another. So the individuality starts to become connected to others. And then there is more knowledge, experience, understanding. And a lot of an individual's understand. And a different picture is seen. So personality then starts to diminish at this point. And form also starts to blur. It blurs from, let us say, an individual being to one that is joined to another. And then this joy starts again a life of its own, and others are joined together, and others and others. So maybe what is 1 becomes 2, becomes 10, becomes 20, etc. So then there is no individual personality, yet it is still there if it is required to be accessed. But it is not important anymore. And the soul gets bound or desires to attracting more and more souls to it. It becomes its passion. And 20 become 100, become 1,000 with time. Now you can see this playing out in your physical world. Of course, there are ones which are very self-focused, and they gain, or they believe they gain, what they want when they want it, only to realize that there's pain at the end of the day, and no matter how much they gain, satisfaction is not achieved. On the other end, there are those which give selflessly. And although they give away all they have, they seem to both be aspirational, but also very connected. And people are drawn to them. Now, there would be in the physical world some degree of personality still there, but the needs of self are diminishing. So as you close your eyes on one side of the bridge and walk across to my side of the bridge and open your eyes into this new land, you are exactly the same person. You have not become an angel or a demon or anything else. You are still exactly the same. And although the world would look different, in essence, it would appear and become very familiar to you. And then in time, you take your rightful place wherever your soul or your mind needs to take. So you can experience within the physical world some which are born from this astral world time and again, to gain an experience for self or for other. And you will also experience ones which are connected at a higher level, a causal level, if you want. And here they draw information and knowledge and the connection of other people to them. Rarely, but possibly, there are beings which are born from other levels or higher levels, if you want. And they come into the world, not for their benefit, to be an expression of their quality of soul. Now, which level are you, you may ask? What level are you working on in the non-physical? Well, you see, it depends on your eyesight. Your spiritual eyesight, of course. And if you have only awoken to, let's say, the basement level, then that is where you will be. The truth is, you are not on one level, but on all levels. You are waking up on level 1, 2, 3, and 4, all at the same time. And level 4 will influence level 3, which influences level 2, which influences level 1, etc. Some time ago, I gave the analogy of a light shining through a series of tissues. And when the light gets to the last tissue, it is somewhat diminished. But the light is still shining through every tissue, representing every layer of existence. There are things to be dealt with at each level. But you see, the higher you are in your level, the more clarity with the tissues below you, and the more light is allowed through. So as you clear away understanding, requirements, karma, or the needs of self, then that tissue may become more like glass. When you work through your creation, your level of mind, that is glassed too. The level of causal becomes glass. And with each case, then the life being lived becomes a greater expression of light from the higher level. So the answer to your question, and I do apologize, I have gone off track somewhat, but the answer to your question, is personality still there as you cross the bridge? Well, the answer is yes, for a while, and then no. Unless the being wishes to stay at level 1 or 2. Don't forget, the memory of the personality can still be within the higher soul. But they do not wish to be known by just one limited personality. When you get to, let us say, 1,000 souls joining together, do they want to be known by one personality in one life at one time? No matter how truthful it is, I think you can see that they would just want to be an expression of light. Does this answer your question, madam? Do you understand? I presume so.
I believe it does. I
Yeah.
believe it does.
Do we have time for another question, Brandon?
Let's save the next set of questions for next week so that we can afford you proper time to answer them effectively. Thank you, Ignatius.
I'm glad you liked the story.
I did.
Mm. Can you see that although I use the analogy of mediumship, it is also an expression of development, isn't it? Self-development and understanding of self and having true intention and purpose.
Yes, I understood the analogy. And although you may not see it, individuals in the chat window have also mentioned they like the story as well.
Mm. Yes. Well, I am most pleased if that's the case. So next week, we will continue with the questions and answer as best as we are able. And then we take a short break after then. And our following topic will be on relationships. So, until next week, I bid you all well. Reconnect to that peace in your heart and live your life from there. God bless you. Mm.